Hey everybody, welcome to Tenza Motorsports, and today we are going to be ending the year with some hatred and discontent with my feelings towards the race car. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about a giveaway that we're doing very soon. Make sure you're following us on Instagram. We'll get into that and then come right back to this topic.
Huge thanks to Super Clean. We are doing another one of their giveaways. This has been absolutely fantastic cleaner. I've been able to use it in basically every single scenario that has come across us working on cars, the garage, houses, interiors of cars, all the way down to scrubbing the grill out in the backyard. Absolutely fantastic stuff. All you have to do to be part of this giveaway is be following us on Instagram, Tenza_Motorsports, and be in the lower 48 United States. It's all you've got to be doing. We've done giveaways from Super Clean before. It's been very successful. We'll continue to do them. Again, just be following us on Instagram. Big thanks to Super Clean. All this information will be down in the description below. Thanks for being part of the giveaway, and now back to the video.
All right, so we are sitting in my 2001 330 Ci race car, and it's a very nitpicky list. To come up with 5 things that I truly hate about the car versus like, oh, I don't really like that or I don't really care for that, but things that I like hate. Some of the things are a love-hate, so I do and don't like them. It's kind of depending on my mood, which is a little bit funny, but most of the things that I hate about my car is something that I have done or something that was track focused that makes it difficult to just kind of cruise around town in. So none of these problems that I'm talking today are inherent to the E46. None of this is like, oh, I hate that the headliner in the E46 comes down. Mine's gone. Oh, the interior doesn't hold up very well, or whatever is like, okay, this is the E46. If I want to keep it E46 and keep it stock, these are the things that I fight and that I hate. Nothing like that will be in this video because most of what made this car an E46 is basically gone. I literally just have a shell with a supercharged motor at this point. So let's get to the first thing that I hate about my race car. My toggle switch panel. Again, I love the toggle switch panel and I put all these lights on it, but they are so bright at night that when I'm looking forward that I have to put tape over them. And I've tried tinting them, and that does kind of work, but then the tint ends up falling off because the way that the little shroud around the LED lights. So when you're driving around at night, you've got a shadow up above you from where the LEDs are so bright. And unfortunately, my wife's race car, which is right behind us, suffers the same thing. So that's something that we're going to have to get a permanent fix on at some point. Is you just can't drive the car around at night. And talking about driving around at night, now this is still the first thing I don't like, is that blacking out the headlights does make it difficult to see at night. So I had to adjust my regular beams to compensate for my high beams. And so in town, when there's street lights and stuff like that, I'll run with my halos and my fog lights on, and then I won't run anything else. So yeah, blacking out the headlights and putting a toggle switch panel with really bright LEDs was probably not the best way to build the car, but I just, during the day, like, there's nothing like flicking on some toggle switches and watching the lights turn on as you boot up your car. It's super awesome. All right, so the second thing that I hate about my race car is how difficult it is to get in and out of, how paranoid you end up being about seats. Like when you spend some real money on a pair of seats and not just some like fake or cheap, NRGs or something like that, you end up getting like super paranoid. You don't want anybody sitting in your car that's any dirty, like got any dirt on their jeans, anything like that. You're really nervous about like rubbing the bolsters as you get in and out of the car. It just becomes a bit of a finicky thing, and it's the only thing in the car that I'm fussy about except for maybe the paint, because it's the only thing that really has any wear and tear. There's no wear and tear on the carpet, so you don't care if you got dirty shoes. Let's just wipe the floor out. If you've got a friend and he's really tall with a greasy head, he's not rubbing my headliner because there's no headliner in there. So, I don't know. The seats, I love the seats. Again, I love them, but I hate that they are something that gives me like anxiety to have people in the car. I have to help people get in and out. Like, put your feet in first and then put your butt straight down. Don't roll up over the bolster because you'll eventually end up tearing the fabric on the seats, and I really don't want to spend money to replace them, the fabric. All right, so the third thing that I hate about having a dedicated track car is in this particular case we went with no heat, no AC. So you're driving around with the windows down. if it's hot outside and you forgot sunscreen, you're getting burnt. I mean, that we went on a really long drive. I think it was last summer, or actually, I think it's 2 years ago now, and I was just burnt. And it was weird because there was like a line right here where the roof was covering part of my face, but a lot of my face and shoulder and on this hand was sitting out in the sun, and my lips got really burnt. So not having heat or AC, yeah, that's something that's not very fun. You're just so in the moment most of the time when you're driving, you don't realize it. Unless again you're going on a really long road trip, which is what happened. And that's when you start noticing, oh my gosh, I don't really have any cruise control. The seats are starting to get kind of, fussy, hard to be in, and it's hotter than crap in the car. Again, if you're not going on any long road trips, then it doesn't really matter. And then the next thing we're going to be talking about is the sound of the car, the interior, the noise, how loud the car is. So obviously this was driven by performance upgrades, catless headers, removing the muffler. The muffler is extremely heavy, so it's not just to be like, oh, I want some more sound out of my car. But I feel like even without the exhaust being that noisy, it just is like, there's just so many things on the inside of the car now that's been stripped out. There's no sound deadening, anything like that. It just makes a ton of noise every time you hit a rock. A rock, like something small on the road, it shakes the whole car. And I feel like even when I do go through and actually fix my exhaust that I've been talking about for a long time and actually go and make it quieter, I feel like it's still going to be super loud in here. I'm going to have a video right here of me going and actually doing an interior test of how loud the car gets. Obviously most of it is driven by the exhaust, but a lot of it is driven by not having any sound deadening. All right, before we get to our last thing, one honorable mention. I live in a state where we get a lot of snow during the winter. Sometimes winter can be 6-7 months long, and it does kind of suck to not to be able to drive in the snow. You can, but I just wouldn't. I've got R888R tires on it, and so it's just something you don't want to drive when it's wet, cold, snowy, anything like that. And you're looking for the weather, you're keeping an eye on all that stuff, so that if you go and take your car out, that you don't find yourself 20 minutes from home and it's raining a whole bunch, because you do hydroplane super easy. I hydroplaned one time. We got rained out of an autocross event, and I hydroplaned in this car at I think it was doing maybe 15 or 20 miles an hour. And I could tell it was a hydroplane, because normally when your car starts to slide, you can feel it in the back or the front. This one almost felt like somebody had my car on their finger and it was balancing, and it was almost like spinning in the middle. It was weird. It was almost like rotating around the axis, right here. And so I've never experienced a slide like that before. And so when I did, I was like, oh my gosh, it just hydroplaned. I looked down, maybe 20 miles an hour. I've got to get home, because it was flooding me out. So there's my honorable mention. It does kind of suck not to be able to drive the car during the winter, but it does give me a really good time frame to go and build the cars. It gives me some downtime, so I'm not getting this FOMO of being like, oh, I need to have the car out, I need to be able to drive it. Saturday's coming up, what am I going to be doing? Well, I know during the winter that we're going to be working on the cars, ironing out any kinks, things like that. All right, so the last thing on the list is the attention that this car gets. I've said this several times before, and I truly do mean it, and I don't mean it in a arrogant or a braggy way, but this car gets more attention than a Ferrari, especially if you don't have a red one. If you have a red Ferrari and you're driving it down the street, you're going to get a lot of attention. But if you just had a black one, and you had one of the GT Ferraris, you're not going to get as much attention in it as I do in this. It just seems like everybody looks at the car, which is fun. I'll be sitting at a gas station and somebody comes, oh, that's a really cool car. Or you get a little kid that's, hey, nice car, I like your race car. But sometimes I don't want the attention. So building race cars, modifying them like this, does make them unreliable. They are not just driving around a normal car where you're doing tuning logs and swapping parts out. You don't always have the most reliable trip, especially when you're, for example, when we got my wife's race car, we drove it, we started it, and then we drove it out of the driveway and drove it back in. We drove it around the block and then drove it back in. When you're testing and making sure that your car's running right, it's not uncommon for you to get stuck somewhere, need a tow home because you're literally like a street over from your house, and you just have everybody with their phones out, looking, pointing, talking. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, sometimes I just kind of want to blend in. Sometimes I just want to go up to the hills and blend in. But in order to blend in, especially on a car like this, you'd have to remove all your aero. That definitely does not help make the car look any more normal. Having all that aero on the car, and then basically you're saying, okay, well, I'm going to prioritize the way the car looks versus the way the car now performs. And so I'm going to build a car that performs like this, and then whatever it ends up looking like, that's just a byproduct of building the car. And I don't care what it looks like, but I want it to feel and drive like this. So anyways, those are the things that I absolutely hate about my race car. Thanks everybody so much for watching. Do please comment down below, what did you think was most interesting or most shocking to hear? What was one of my points that you were like, wow, I can't believe that he thinks that's a downside, or that you would never have even thought of. Again, these things are my own doing. None of this was like, oh, the E46 is like this, and I hate the E46 because of this. It's my race car. Things I have done to my race car has caused me to feel this way about some of these items. Thanks again so much for watching. We really appreciate all the support. 2023, I posted the most videos in 2023 than I ever have in the past. I think I did like 78 videos this year, which is not quite 2 a week. I did do 2-3 times a week for a couple months there during the summer. I'm not gonna be able to keep up a schedule like that now that we've got a house and that we're trying to work this out. So be patient with us. We're gonna be continuing to post once a week. We will have some garage and house updates and do some different content, but we are going to be mostly focusing on our 3 BMWs and the Porsche Boxster that has been on the channel recently. So yeah, look forward to another fantastic year with all of you guys. Make sure to check out our Instagram down in the description below, Tenza_Motorsports, for the Super Clean giveaway, and we'll see you in the next video.
Tenza.
Bam!